The scent of rosemary chicken wafted through the house, warm and comforting. Rachel Monroe carefully placed the last fork on the dinner table, smoothing the napkin beside it like she always did. This small routine, setting the table while Lucas sang faintly from his room upstairs, was the kind of peace she had worked her whole life to preserve. Outside, the sun was just beginning to set over Charlottesville, casting a golden glow through the kitchen window. This was home. This was safe. Rachel took a breath, closing her eyes for a moment. At 41, she had built something she thought would last. A quiet life, a loving husband, a steady job teaching literature at the high school. Sure, her dreams had been bigger once. There were times she had wanted to write, to travel, to open her own tutoring center. But she had put those dreams aside for something she believed in more: stability, family, trust. Her phone buzzed. She wiped her hands on the towel hanging from the oven door and picked it up, expecting a reminder from Lucas's school or maybe a group message from her friend Monica. But it wasn't that. It was Ethan. "She needs our support. I'm moving in with her. Already emptied our joint account. Ha ha." Rachel stood still. Her fingers didn't tremble. Her knees didn't buckle. Instead, she blinked once, twice, and then set the phone gently down on the counter. "Lucas," she called, her voice steady. "Dinner's ready." He came thudding down the stairs in socks, humming some tune from a video game. He flopped into his usual seat, grinning. Rachel smiled at him, poured water into his glass, and sat down like nothing had changed. But something had. Something massive had cracked beneath the surface, and she could feel it in the silence between her breaths. Her phone buzzed again. "She's pregnant, Rachel. Hannah's scared. We have to be there for her. I know this is a lot, but we can be adults about this." A ringing filled her ears, drowning out Lucas's humming, the clinking of silverware, even the beat of her own heart. Pregnant. Hannah. Her sister. Her mind jumped to every memory she had protected. Hannah calling Ethan her favorite brother-in-law, Ethan picking her up late at night because she was having a hard time. That Thanksgiving, when they giggled together in the kitchen for too long over inside jokes Rachel wasn't part of, Rachel defending them when friends and neighbors whispered things she didn't want to believe, because Hannah was blood, family, and Ethan, he had been her partner for 14 years, her person. She had loved them both, trusted them both. Rachel slowly picked up her phone. Her thumb hovered for a moment, then typed a single word: "Congratulations." No emotion, no anger, just a clean, cold reply. She set her phone back down and continued eating with Lucas, answering his questions about school and pretending everything was normal. But inside, something hard and immovable began to rise. This wasn't shock. It wasn't even heartbreak. It was clarity. 3 months ago, Rachel had found a receipt folded into the inner pocket of Ethan's jacket, a boutique hotel in Roanoke, listed on a night he claimed to be on a staff retreat. She didn't confront him then. Instead, she started keeping records, quietly. Every time Ethan came home late, she logged it. Every strange charge on their credit card, flowers, room service, jewelry, she printed it. She rerouted her own savings into a private account under her maiden name. She talked to Monica, her best friend and a real estate paralegal, who urged her to protect her home. Ethan thought he was in control, that he could shatter her life in a text and walk away with their money and her baby sister. What he didn't know was, the house was in Rachel's name. The joint account had been a decoy for weeks. She had already hired a lawyer. That night, Rachel poured herself a glass of the wine Ethan had been saving for a special occasion. She raised the glass toward the ceiling. "This feels special enough." Her phone buzzed again. "Don't make this ugly. Hannah's young. She didn't mean for this to happen." Rachel laughed. A dry, bitter, quiet laugh. "Ugly?" she whispered, staring at the screen. "Oh, honey, this is just the beginning." She forwarded the text to Heather Dawson, her attorney in Richmond, who had been waiting for this moment. Then she typed a final reply to Ethan. "Take care of her." No threats. No pleading. No drama. And then she turned her phone off. The silence that followed wasn't weakness. It was strategy. It was strength. It was the calm before the storm. and Ethan wouldn't realize how dangerous that silence was until it was too late. The morning sunlight filtered through the blinds as Rachel stirred a spoon of honey into her black coffee. Outside, birds chirped in the dogwood tree near the porch swing, but the stillness in the air felt heavier than usual. Lucas shuffled into the kitchen, his hair a wild mess, rubbing his eyes. He was still in his Batman pajamas and had clearly just woken up. "Where's Dad?" he asked, hopping up onto a stool and reaching for a slice of toast. Rachel didn't flinch. Her hand paused mid-spread over a peanut butter sandwich, but her voice didn't waver. "He had to help Aunt Hannah with something important," she said smoothly. Lucas shrugged, already reaching for the orange juice. "Okay." And just like that, the moment passed. He was too young to understand betrayal, too innocent to know what his father had done. For now, Rachel would protect that innocence. But when the school bus drove off with Lucas inside, Rachel turned, poured herself a third cup of coffee, and dialed her lawyer. Heather Dawson answered on the second ring. "Rachel?" "It's time," Rachel said quietly. Heather didn't hesitate. "Let's begin." Step 1, freeze the joint accounts. Ethan had arrogantly texted that he had emptied the joint account. He probably thought he had gutted her financially, thought he'd walked away victorious with the last laugh. What he didn't know was that Rachel had restructured their financial web 3 months ago. She left just enough in the joint account to keep him feeling smug and unsuspecting. The real savings, the ones that mattered, were safely tucked away in an account under her maiden name, Rachel Green. By 9:00 a.m., the freeze was complete. Ethan would soon discover the only funds he'd emptied were grocery change and petty cash. Step 2, lock the house. A locksmith arrived by 9:45 a.m., a kind older man with a quiet manner. Rachel watched from the porch as he removed the old deadbolt and replaced it with a new high-security model. "You sure about this?" he asked, handing her the new set of keys. She nodded, tucking the keys into her cardigan pocket. "I've never been more sure of anything." For over a year, Ethan had pushed to get his name on the deed. Rachel had always delayed, claiming taxes, timing, paperwork. Now her procrastination was her best protection. The house had been her mother's, then transferred to Rachel years before she married Ethan. No matter what Ethan believed, it had never been his. By 10:30 a.m., the locks were changed. Step 3, file for divorce. Grounds, adultery. Heather had prepared the documents weeks ago, waiting for Rachel's signal. Now, she uploaded the paperwork and filed in the Charlottesville Circuit Court. That afternoon, as Rachel was reviewing a lesson plan for her AP English class, she got a text from Heather. "He's officially being served." Rachel picked Lucas up early from school. She didn't want him walking into chaos if Ethan tried anything dramatic. "Everything okay?" Lucas asked, swinging his backpack over one shoulder. Rachel smiled and brushed his hair from his forehead. "Everything's fine. Thought we could grab some ice cream today." He lit up instantly. "Mint chocolate chip?" "Of course." As he devoured his cone in the back seat, Rachel's phone buzzed. "Ethan, you changed the locks? I need to come get my stuff." "You're being dramatic." Rachel stared at the screen for a moment before typing. "I didn't change the locks. The homeowner did." There was no reply. That evening, just after sunset, the phone rang again. This time it was Hannah. Rachel stepped onto the porch, cradling the phone to her ear. "Rachel," Hannah's voice cracked. "Please don't hate me." Rachel closed her eyes. The sky was tinged orange and lavender, the last of the day's light bleeding across the neighborhood. "I don't hate you," she said. "I pity you." Hannah's breath caught. "He said you told him to take care of me. Does that mean you forgive us?" Rachel paused. Let the silence stretch. "Forgive?" Her voice was even. "No, but you'll understand soon enough." There was a rustle, and then Hannah said something else, halting, almost afraid. "Ethan wants to move into my apartment, but it's small and we're behind on rent. He said maybe you'd let him come back for a bit until we figure things out." Rachel turned, looking at her front door, now secured, impenetrable. "I'm afraid that won't be possible." "Why?" "Because he doesn't live here anymore. He never did. Not legally." There was a stunned silence, and then a faint, muffled voice, Ethan in the background. "What does she mean the house isn't yours?" Rachel didn't wait to hear the rest. She ended the call. By 8:00 p.m., more messages came in. "You're being vindictive. Let me in. I just need a place to sleep." Rachel poured herself another glass of wine and ignored them. She had been silent for too long. Now every quiet decision was a deliberate strike. Later that night, Lucas curled up on the couch beside her. "Mom," he asked softly, "is Dad coming home soon?" Rachel turned off the TV and turned toward him. "Sweetheart," she said, brushing hair from his forehead again, "sometimes grown-ups make bad decisions, and when they do, they have to live with the results." Lucas was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. "Okay." Just like that. One word, 1,000 meanings. The next morning, Rachel's phone buzzed again. This time, it was Heather. "Ethan's attorney called," she said without preamble. "They're claiming you acted maliciously by freezing the accounts." Rachel smirked. "Did you tell them it was all legal?" "I did. I also reminded them the house was never his." His lawyer sounded surprised. "Let him be surprised," Rachel replied, sipping her coffee. "Let him be very surprised." That evening, Rachel met Monica for dinner at a quiet Thai restaurant downtown. Over plates of pad Thai and glasses of chilled white wine, Monica looked at her best friend with admiration. "I'm proud of you," she said. "You didn't blow up. You didn't scream. You planned. You protected yourself and your son." Rachel stirred her noodles slowly. "I loved him. I loved her. I thought that counted for something." "It did," Monica said gently. "But now you're not letting it define you. You're rewriting the ending." Rachel looked out the window, watching cars roll by under the fading light. "No," she whispered, "I'm writing the beginning." Later that night, just before bed, Rachel received one last text. "We need to talk." She turned off her phone and set it face down on the nightstand. For the first time in 14 years, Ethan needed her. And she didn't need him at all. The morning started like any other, calm, measured, deceptively simple. A shaft of sunlight poured into the kitchen, illuminating the steam rising from Rachel's mug of coffee. She stood barefoot on the tile, scrolling through her business emails while Lucas watched cartoons from the living room. There was a strange tranquility in the air, like the house itself had exhaled now that the storm had passed. 3 days had gone by since Rachel filed for divorce and locked Ethan out of her life and her home. The silence, she'd realized, wasn't empty. It was space. Space to think, to breathe, to remember who she was before she had spent years holding up a man who didn't deserve her. Today, she planned to work on something she had set aside for far too long, her online tutoring business. What started as a side gig, helping students prep for their SATs, had slowly grown into something promising. And now, with Ethan gone, it was time to see what she could make of it. Her best friend Monica had recently introduced her to a local investor group that supported women-led businesses. They had reviewed her proposal, seen the metrics, and invited her to pitch in 2 weeks. The pitch could change everything. Rachel opened her laptop and pulled up her notes. But just as she was reviewing her opening slide, her phone buzzed. 8:12 a.m. "Ethan." She didn't answer. A moment later, the message came. "You froze the accounts? Are you serious? Hannah and I need that money. She's pregnant, Rachel." Rachel placed the phone face down and took a sip of her coffee. She could practically see Ethan's face. Red, contorted, disbelief spreading across it as he logged into the joint account expecting a small fortune and finding just $32 and some change. What he had emptied had only ever been a decoy. The real money? Moved months ago. 9:30 a.m. Heather called. "His attorney's accusing you of acting out of spite," she said with a tired chuckle. "They're claiming you intentionally cut him off financially." Rachel didn't flinch. "Did you remind them I followed every legal protocol?" "I did. And when I mentioned the house was never in his name, the man sounded like someone had sucker punched him." Rachel smiled. Let him stay stunned. By noon, the calls stopped. But a new one came in. Hannah. Rachel debated answering. Then curiosity won. Hannah's voice was soft, hoarse. "Rachel, I know you don't owe me anything, but Ethan is spiraling. His credit cards are maxed out. We don't even have rent for next month." Rachel's eyes didn't even twitch. "And?" Hannah sniffled. "He told me I wouldn't have to worry about money, that everything was under control, that the house would be ours, that we'd have help." Rachel's breath caught, just slightly. "He told you that?" "Yes," Hannah whispered. "He said you wouldn't fight him, that you'd understand." Rachel leaned back in her chair. "He really thought he could leave me, betray me, and still walk back into my house?" A pause. Then, "We're having a baby, Rachel." Rachel didn't blink. "That's your problem, not mine." Hannah began sobbing. "He yells all the time now. Blames me for everything. Says I trapped him, that he didn't want this. I don't even think he loves me." Rachel's voice lowered. "He's treating you how he treated me. You just didn't see it before." Silence. And then Rachel ended the call. 3:12 p.m. A knock on the door, hard, angry. Rachel peeked through the peephole and sighed. Ethan. She cracked the door, just enough to meet his eyes. He looked nothing like the man she had married. His clothes were rumpled, hair uncombed, face lined with exhaustion. "You need to let me in," he said. "No." "You're punishing us for a mistake." Rachel's eyes narrowed. "You made a choice. You don't get to call it a mistake just because it didn't work out the way you imagined." "I was your husband for 14 years, he shouted. "You can't just toss me out like trash." Rachel smirked. "You weren't trash until you treated me like I was disposable." His jaw clenched. "I'll fight for the house." "Go ahead. It was mine before we got married. You never paid the mortgage, and you abandoned the marital home. Any judge with 2 working brain cells will laugh you out of the courtroom." "You'll regret this," he hissed. Rachel smiled. "I doubt it." And she shut the door in his face. That night, Rachel returned to her desk, flipping through pitch decks and business plans. Her tutoring business, once dismissed by Ethan as just a cute little side thing, was about to become a brick-and-mortar learning center. Heather called again. "His lawyer's pushing for mediation. They want to settle. Fast." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "He knows he's losing." Heather chuckled. "He's drowning." Rachel exhaled slowly. "Good." She leaned back in her chair, thinking of all the years she'd kept herself small, turning down promotions, skipping writing workshops, shelving her book ideas, just to preserve Ethan's ego. Not anymore. "I played small so he could feel big," she murmured, "but I'm not shrinking for anyone again." 10:45 p.m. The phone rang again. Hannah. Rachel stared at the screen, then answered. "He left," Hannah sobbed, "packed a bag and said he needed space, just walked out. I don't know what to do." Rachel listened without saying a word. "I don't have anywhere to go. My lease is ending. I can't do this by myself." "You already are," Rachel said softly. A pause. "Please, Rachel." Rachel's voice was calm, steady, final. "Now you know how it feels." She hung up. Then she opened her laptop. A new listing had just popped up, an ideal location for her tutoring studio. Affordable rent, good parking, walking distance from 3 schools. She bookmarked it, grabbed her notebook, and started sketching out the floor plan. Outside, the wind picked up. Somewhere, a chapter had slammed shut. Inside, Rachel was building a new one from scratch. And she wasn't just surviving anymore, she was thriving. As the morning sun had barely cleared the ridge behind her neighborhood when Rachel stepped into her lawyer's office. Her heels clicked softly against the hardwood floor, her breath steady, her posture tall. Heather greeted her with a smirk and 2 mugs of hot coffee already waiting. "You're not going to believe this," Heather said, sliding a folder across the desk. Rachel raised an eyebrow. "Try me." Heather leaned forward. "Ethan and Hannah are being evicted." Rachel blinked. "From my house?" "No, from Hannah's apartment," Heather clarified. "Apparently the lease is only in her name. She's been behind on rent for 2 months. Their landlord served them notice last night." For a second, Rachel just sat there, stunned. Then she exhaled, a long, slow breath she didn't even realize she'd been holding. "So, they're both homeless?" "Looks like it," Heather confirmed. Rachel let her gaze drift toward the window behind Heather. Outside, the city was waking up. People walking their dogs, buses beginning their routes, shops opening. It all looked so normal, so steady. Almost poetic, she murmured. By 9:00 a.m., her phone buzzed with a call from an unfamiliar number. She knew who it was before she answered. "Rachel," Ethan's voice came through, tight with panic. "You had no right to do this to me." Rachel swirled her coffee slowly in its cup. "Do what exactly? Leave you to deal with the mess you created? You froze the accounts, took the house, left me with nothing." "You left me, Ethan," she interrupted, voice calm. "You just didn't realize what you were walking away from." He hesitated. "We're sleeping on the floor of a friend's apartment. I have nowhere to go, no car, no money. Do you even care?" She stared out the window. "I stopped caring the moment you packed your bags and walked out. For my sister." "You act like I planned this," he snapped. Rachel's voice dropped lower. "Didn't you?" He didn't reply. "I've got to go," she said, and hung up without waiting. Out. Around noon, Rachel's phone buzzed again. This time, a text. It was from Hannah. "I don't know what to do. Ethan left. Just walked out and said he needed space. I think he's not coming back." Rachel stared at the message for a moment. Then with slow fingers, she typed, "Now you know what it feels like," and hit send. Later that evening, Monica stopped by with a bottle of red wine and a tray of Thai takeout. They sat on the back patio as twilight fell, the air cool and fragrant with the scent of blooming dogwoods. "You look different," Monica said, unwrapping a carton of noodles. "I feel different," Rachel replied. "For years I kept my life small, said no to things I wanted, passed on job offers, dimmed myself. Also, Ethan wouldn't feel inadequate. And now?" Rachel raised her glass. "Now I'm done apologizing for taking up space," Monica grinned, "to finally being the villain in someone else's story." They clinked glasses. 3:00 p.m. Heather called. Again. "Ethan's lawyer just filed a motion to revisit the financial settlement," she said. Rachel didn't even blink. "On what grounds?" "He's claiming financial hardship, says your actions caused it." Rachel snorted. "Did the judge laugh?" "Pretty much," Heather said, chuckling. "Motion denied, and he was ordered to pay your legal fees." Rachel laughed, this time a deep, real, chest-warming laugh that echoed off the patio walls. "He's running out of lifelines," Heather added. "Good. He always thought someone would save him," Rachel said, swirling her wine. "Let him learn the hard way." The next morning, Rachel drove across town to sign the lease on a new property, her first storefront for Bright Roots Learning, the tutoring studio she had dreamed of launching for over 5 years. As she stepped into the empty building, sunlight poured through the large windows. Dust motes danced in the air. The walls were bare, the floors freshly waxed, the future wide open. She touched the keys in her hand. "This is mine," she whispered. "All mine." That evening, her phone rang again. The screen read, "Hannah." Rachel debated, then picked up. Her sister's voice was small, broken. "You were right," she said. "He never loved me. He used me, lied to me, left the minute things got hard." Rachel said nothing. "I'm pregnant, alone, and broke. I can't even get him to answer my texts. I've been sleeping on a friend's futon for the past week." Rachel leaned against the kitchen counter. "I'm not calling to ask for help," Hannah continued. "I just needed you to know that I finally see it. What you meant. What he really is. I'm sorry. I ruined everything." Rachel's voice was quiet, but not cold. "You didn't ruin me. You freed me." Then she ended the call. The next day was the soft launch for Bright Roots. Rachel spent the afternoon prepping the classroom, arranging chairs, laying out books and whiteboards, and pinning up quotes on the wall. "Grow through what you go through." Monica popped in with cupcakes. Lucas handed Rachel a handmade card. "I'm proud of you, Mom." She hugged him tightly. "We did this together." 6:00 p.m. Her assistant walked into the storefront, eyes wide. "You're not going to believe who's across the street." Rachel turned. Through the glass, she saw Ethan, standing on the curb, disheveled, unshaven, eyes shadowed by sleepless nights. He didn't wave, just stared. Rachel didn't flinch, didn't move. She turned away and walked into her new office. Because he was no longer part of her story. It had been 3 weeks since the divorce was finalized. Rachel hadn't heard directly from Ethan since that last voicemail, the one where his voice cracked under the weight of losing everything. But through mutual acquaintances, neighbors who gossiped over fences, co-workers who bumped into him at gas stations, she'd learned just enough to know he was flailing. He was bouncing from couch to couch, sleeping on the pullouts of friends who had started dodging his texts. His credit was ruined. His bank accounts bled dry. Job prospects? Minimal. Reputation? Damaged beyond repair. She didn't gloat. She didn't smile when she heard it. She just let it be, because Rachel Monroe had other things to do. This morning, as golden sunlight spilled through the wide windows of Bright Roots Learning, Rachel stood by the front desk, helping a student zip their backpack while chatting with a parent about after-school sessions. The scent of lavender from the diffuser in the corner blended with the faint sound of kids laughing in the next room. The walls were filled with children's art, motivational quotes, and color-coded lesson plans. This was hers. Every square inch. No longer just a dream. No longer something she postponed for someone else's ego. Her name was on the lease. Her schedule was full. Her life was vibrant. Lucas had started staying after school here some days, happily organizing bookshelves or helping younger kids find pencils. He had stopped asking when his dad would be home. Now he talked about math competitions. His new crush. His plan to learn guitar. Peace at last had taken root. That afternoon, Rachel sat in her small glass-walled office in the back of the studio, reviewing next quarter's budget and drafting a proposal to local schools for a new reading enrichment program. Monica had joined her earlier to review branding ideas. Bright Roots was getting buzz in Richmond, and investors were beginning to take interest in helping her open a second location downtown. A surprise email had also come in that morning. Her blog post about parenting through betrayal had gone semi-viral among single-parent networks. One message stood out. I shared your story in a women's writing group. One of our editors from a children's publishing house saw it. She wants to see a manuscript if you've got one. Rachel read the line twice. Her heart thudded, because once, long ago, writing had been her sanctuary. And the book she started, about a little girl who grows a garden after a storm, was still sitting in her Google Docs, waiting. Everything she'd once buried to make room for Ethan's needs was finding its way back. At 5:40 p.m., Rachel received a voicemail from Heather. Hey, just a heads up. Ethan filed another motion. He's claiming financial hardship due to your actions. He's requesting alimony. Rachel didn't even blink. Heather continued. The judge dismissed it in minutes. Said Ethan demonstrated willful abandonment and financial irresponsibility. Also, he's been ordered to cover additional court fees. Rachel leaned back in her chair and laughed softly. Heather added, He's unraveling, Rach. He's trying every trick, but none of them are landing. You're clear, clean, stronger than ever. Rachel looked around her bright studio. Kids' laughter, the scratch of pencils, the buzz of learning. She was already on the other side. That night, after locking up the studio, Rachel headed home. Lucas was at his friend's sleepover, and the house was quiet. She curled up on the couch with a blanket and glass of Pinot Noir. The moon hung heavy outside the window, soft and silver. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. She knew before she opened it. I was wrong about everything. You were always the strong one. I see that now. I lost everything. Please, just talk to me, even if it's just to say goodbye. Ethan. Rachel didn't cry. Her hands didn't shake. She didn't even feel rage. She stared at the message for a full minute, then quietly deleted it. 3 days later, Rachel received a call from a blocked number. She let it go to voicemail. But this time, curiosity tugged at her. She listened. It was Hannah. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I needed to say this. Her voice was shaky, tired, not the breathy, excitable tone Rachel remembered. You were right. About all of it. He used me, lied to me, left when things got hard. I'm 6 months pregnant, sleeping on a friend's futon. He doesn't even text anymore. Rachel closed her eyes as the message continued. I'm not calling to ask for anything. I just wanted you to know, I'm sorry. I get it now. I ruined everything, and I'm ashamed." A long pause. "I ruined everything." Then the message ended. Rachel didn't call back, but she whispered aloud softly, "You didn't ruin me. You freed me." And that was enough. 1 month later, Rachel stood in front of a crowd of smiling parents, local reporters, and students at the Bright Roots Richmond grand opening. Monica stood beside her, holding a ceremonial ribbon. Lucas handed her a bouquet of sunflowers. "You did it, Mom," he said, his voice quiet with awe. Rachel knelt and kissed his cheek. "We did it." As the scissors sliced through the ribbon, applause rang out. Cameras flashed. Someone from the local paper asked for a quote. Rachel smiled and said, "This isn't just a business. It's a new beginning. For kids, for families, and for me." That night, she received an email from the children's publisher. The manuscript for her book, The Garden We Grow, was accepted. A story about a little girl whose family falls apart, but who learns to grow something beautiful from the brokenness, just like Rachel had. Back at home, Rachel pulled open the hall closet and took out the old wedding photo. She stared at it, not with sadness, but with clarity. Then she gently placed it in a donation box. No flames, no ceremony, just letting go. This wasn't revenge. It was peace, freedom, power. She walked to the fireplace. The light flickered off her face as she whispered to herself, "I wasn't the one who lost everything. I was the one who walked away with everything that truly mattered." She smiled and didn't look back.